He's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
Welcome back to the Getting Lit podcast. Last episode, I talked to Jared Klickstein about his book, Crooked Smile. And this episode, where we're talking to the self-styled Ern Malley of the 21st century, Jasper Ceylon, who has published an amazing book called Echolalia Review. And yeah, it's about poetry. It has poetry. And it's very funny. And yeah, welcome aboard, Jasper.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Yeah, I think I listened to your appearance on Art of Darkness and Heavy Board in the same sort of sphere as us. And I just thought this idea of this book was so funny. And then reading it, it was really hilarious as well. So I just wanted you to get, what's your kind of elevator pitch for this book? What is it? And yeah, why should people read it?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll give your listeners the same disclaimer I gave you guys. I'm probably going to cough just sporadically throughout this. Get ready for that. Some degree of sick at the moment. But yeah, so I guess an elevator pitch for this would be it's half a sort of fictitious poetry journal issue, half literary criticism and creative nonfiction critique pieces about the industry itself. So I've fashioned like a top to bottom issue of this Echolalia review journal I've made up, but it's filled to the brim with the worst poems you will ever read on every manner of subject matter and in every style you would see in today's poetry. So I guess the main selling point of it is the front half, because I deceived so many journals with these pieces and they thought they were legitimate poems that I was sending out in good faith, but they're terrible, but just in very diverse and different ways. But yeah, with the sort of second half, I'm really just trying to take it to the industry and expose really quite fraudulent practices in certain cases, editorial practices, business practices, that sort of thing. And then I've got a mini like manifesto in the back end to inform people as to how we might rectify some of these issues. So it's a weird meta-modern kind of book.
Yeah. And also I love the element of performance art involved, because you're playing all of these personas and submitting these poems to all of these journals and getting them accepted. And so for those who don't know, like I'm more of in the, and we're both, I think, more familiar with the prose fiction world and things like that. But I imagine there's similar things going on around the fetishization of certain identities in terms of what gets picked up and published and championed. That's like what you were doing with this performance art piece, like speaking to that and the problems with that and like how that interacts with whether something is actually good. And I found that really funny and really fascinating, how he would submit a poem and it would just immediately get accepted because you were of a niche identity. So this has obviously happened all over the publishing world. What is going on? What is your kind of read on this? I have my own thoughts on this, but what do you think is going on after doing all of this performance art piece?
Yeah, and in some respects, it is performance art. It is a kind of strange, elaborate ruse that did, in some cases, actually take like physical commitment to things of that sort. Like it took place over the course of 2 years, essentially, and I had to put so much time into answering emails and creating art concepts and all this sort of crazy shit. So what on the surface is, yeah, an encapsulation basically of so much more that went on behind the scenes. And I tried to put as much of it into this as I could. But it was going to end up being like 300 pages if I put all my notes and all these anecdotes about all these hilariously demoralizing things these editors said to me, and just like how like effusive they were in their praise and stuff. And I would just think, holy shit, what is going on? But I tried to get like snapshots of everything, but it was performance art in a certain respect. But then in terms of what's going on with the industry, this was my way of, bringing it to light, just worming my way in there in a different kind of capacity, just to see what the treatment would be like if you were actually one of the demographics they wanted versus what I am. Because I had my experiences on the other end of things, just grinding it out and just slaving away. So I'm like, okay, what happens if I just jump over to the other side for a little bit? Am I going to start getting all these deals really quickly? Are they going to throw more money at me? This kind of shit. And yeah, actually, it turned out that's exactly what happens. There's really no denying it. And I've given a sample size of this. I could have kept going. I could have gotten Adele a full collection published. I could have gotten them editorial positions because those were being thrown my way near the end. So this really could have kept going. But what I saw was that, in a nutshell, your career gets expedited when you are of an identity that they really like and they want to promote. Yes, you have to do good work, of course, or you at least have to remain consistent enough to be published regularly. But they really love you and they give you the push pretty quick. So I don't know. There's so much to say on this as to why it's happening, but at least with this, hopefully I've proven that it, at the very least,
it's happening.
Yeah.
We've gone past the it's not happening phase to it's happening.
Yeah.
And obviously this kind of project is a step in that direction to proving that it's happening. I love all of the different personas. Like you've got, it seems to me like as someone who is an outsider to this poetry world, that you've clocked every stereotype in this world. Because to me, poetry is, these days anyway, modern poetry is like a dark corner of a wine bar with a woman who claims she's non-binary screaming about her non-binary vagina. That is what poetry is to me. That's what I imagine. Yeah. And this did not disabuse me of that perception. But what I loved, of course, I loved the hilarious Nigerian non-binary healthcare worker, I think she is. But I also love like the male poets. Like I love Dirt Hog Sauvage Respectfully, who is like this. Is he like a Gen X or a millennial or something? He's trying to be with it. And
yeah.
I love that there's so much like character development in these personas that it's just like really delicious. I loved it. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, Dirt Hog, he's become a bit of a fan favorite. And he was, meant to be like a kind of 40-ish-year-old editor, because he's one of the founders of the fake Echolalia review as well.
Okay.
All of his stuff that you see in there is just pushed through. It's complete junk, but because he's an editor, like it immediately makes the cut. So he's one of these sort of vehicles for nepotism and everything and within the collection. But with Dirt Hog, he's, I imagine him as like 43, and he's basically through this phase, he's pretending to be a Zoomer, like a Gen Z writer, because he's trying to reinvent himself. And I see this a lot with late 30s, 40s-ish writers who don't really want to let go. I don't know. Go through this career transformation where they're writing about things that they probably don't have much connection to within contemporary culture. And that's not to say they can't, but there's a certain degree of inauthenticity to their treatments if they're not living this stuff. I just thought it would be funny because I see this pretty often. The 40-something edgelord writers or who used to write just like really tame stuff, but then have come back around in a different way. But I'm not trying to exclude older writers, but it seemed I'd seen it so much. And it just seemed like a great opportunity for a type of character that you almost never see in these types of things. Yeah, he's fun. I like him.
But he's such a timeless archetype too. And I love one of the poems that he writes in this is just full of emoji, which is so funny. but in a way that like, yeah, there's like nuance to it too, because it's not mum's love emoji. Like in the family group chat, your mums and your aunts are always like emojis after everything. So it's not that kind of unpretentious sort of use of it. It's like he's trying to be cool by making fun of that use of emoji. And I love that element of it too. It's a lot more nuanced with the parody there, which I think was like brilliant. I love that poem. It's one of those poems though that you've got to see it, like because of the emoji.
Yeah, those 3 emoji pastas are pretty visual, and like the one there, the lead one that a lot of people like, the Shakespeare's Cum Slut one.
Yeah, which is just a perfect title too.
And I was gonna actually call the collection Shakespeare's Cum Slut initially. I showed it to this poet who lives in my hometown, and he's quote unquote made it. And I'm like, hey, I met him at a coffee shop. I'm like, what do you think of the collection? What do you got for me? He's, this is insane. What you're cooking up is just, I can't put my name on this. He's like, I've got a teaching position. I got a family. I can't be endorsing this. But he was actually quite helpful in steering it just a little bit more. But I wish I could have actually attributed some of this to him, because I haven't really reached out to him since we released it. But where is I even going with that?
He couldn't endorse it, basically, is what you were saying.
Yeah. So the Cum Slut one, I told him that I was going to call it that, and he's like, do not do that. I have no idea what this would even have to do with encapsulating the nature of the project. I'm like, man, I just really liked the title. He's, oh no, don't. So I saved that for instead the emoji pasta when I sent it out. And yeah, that was the one that got nominated for the award. And I have no idea if I'm still in the running. I actually do not know, because editors have been like reaching out to each other. And my person on the inside has been telling me that, yeah, it's caused this kind of miniature firestorm where they're trying to act as if it isn't happening. But I don't know if the sundress people have taken me out of the running yet. And if in 2 months I find out that I won as one of the poems, I'm going to fucking lose it. That'd be so cool.
You'll have to republish the book and say the poem is won this prize or whatever. Yeah.
We'll just put like a badge on the cover with a little gold says thing.
Yeah. Best of the Net 2025 winner.
And that's like that kind of this, you're poking and prodding at all of that infrastructure too, because it's not just about publication. It's also about prizes and money and all that sort of stuff, and how certain people of certain identities get rewarded just by virtue of the fact of their identity, rather. So you mentioned actually before that, just offhand, that usually a lot of these people are talented, but I'm guessing that you think that a lot of these people aren't, and that this is a way to go. This sort of project was a way of showing that up in a way that, like, talent is not the thing. Like, it's more other things, like boxes that we have to check in the poetry world.
And unfortunately, that seems to be the case, because as I've said recently, and I think in the book as well, like there are a lot of talented poets out there. I just think they're currently being misdirected. They're not using their talents as they could be. And I'm not some sort of tyrant where I'm trying to force people to write poetry that I would like or anything of the sort. But it's more that, yeah, it's pretty clear that they're just doing what's expected of them or asked of them, and they're not really asking questions because it's working. So a lot of really great poets who wouldn't play the game just get buried for ages or potentially forever, while a lot of these sort of, I would say, good but not great poets get full collections published, get advances, eventually find agents even. And it seems like quite a disservice to poetry itself to operate this way, because you're really just putting out to the public kind of like decent material a lot of the time that could be so much better. I don't really think that's how any art form thrives.
Yeah, that's one thing that came through in the book as well, or the project. I keep calling it a book, and it is, but because of the format, I'm not sure what to call it. I'll just say the project.
Yeah. It's a bit of a project. Yeah, it's an odd beast.
Yeah, it's great for that. And so I would say that, where was I going with that? the project, you can tell that, and I've listened to other interviews with you as well, but like in the project itself, you can tell that you really love the form. Like it's not coming from a place of hate and you think it could be better. And there's all of these other things that are getting in the way of the art, essentially. And I think you can tell that with your own skill as well, that it actually does take kind of like skill to recognize what's bad about a lot of this stuff and then put that into practice, if that makes sense. Because the cliche of the online poetry as well that it's always really pissed me off is that, and maybe I'm just really conservative and traditionalist in this, but there is no attention to meter. It's just like, I'm going to press the return key at random like moments as I'm writing shit. And there's just no kind of like structure. And then there's the like intellectualization of it, that like a structure is like a Western imperialist imposition on my art, so therefore should be abandoned, sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
So, and speaking of which, one of the fan favorite poems as well is the Chinese one, Baba, which is, that's probably the most egregious like that. And that one did get accepted, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It appeared in Cathexis Northwest Press. I think it was like late 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So basically, this is one of those poems that like is filled with Mandarin characters and then the odd smattering of English. And I think you've said this in previous interviews that there's literally sentences in the Mandarin that like admit that this is a fake poem and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they didn't even do their due diligence by understanding what's actually written in the poem. You could have been saying anything.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. They won't, because they're either afraid to do their due diligence and criticize the work of, in this case, a vaguely Chinese submitter. They wouldn't want to suggest that I did anything wrong there, because that would be quite inconsiderate of them and whatever else. Yeah, they just won't. Either, like, if they find anything, they won't tell you. They'll just rack their brains over how they get around this issue, and it becomes a matter of sending a bunch of emails back and forth for the editorial team. Like, I've seen it even at magazines I worked at. Yeah, they didn't check. So they either don't want to critique your stuff, or they're lazy, or they've got whatever else going on. In this case, I'm not really sure, but it worked out so that I basically just crammed in a whole bunch of things that violated their guidelines, openly calling for death and like all this sort of stuff. Like these magazines say, oh, no violence, no misogyny. I'm like, okay, you just published one completely full of it. So...
Hi there, listeners. Sorry to interrupt. We really appreciate you listening to us, but if you'd like to hear more from us, you should check out our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/gettinglit and gain access to our exclusive bonus content, including Back Matter, a special after show where we chat a little bit more informally with our guests, usually about a film or something else related to the main episode. For just $5, you get access to these bonus episodes, as well as the full archive of every episode we've ever done. Meanwhile, the new $10 tier allows you to make reading suggestions for the main show. Give us the weird, the wonderful, or the workaday. Whatever it is, we will read it and we'll talk about it. The $10 tier also grants participation in our special bi-monthly book clubs, where we'll be reading something with heft and invite you to chat with us about the book on the main show's feed. For more details and to get the most out of your Getting Lit podcast experience, go to patreon.com/gettinglit. Thanks for listening. Okay, back to the show. Bresto, what was one of your favorite poems?
I liked I think it was right at the start. There was the two poems, whereas one was the anti-natalist woman giving birth about how she hated children. But then the follow-up poem was like her husband, and like, was it like my wife's baby or something? Like, and how it's like through reading the poem, you reveal that he's getting like cucked by like a black guy called Tyrone, and that he's just like the supportive husband watching the black child being born.
Yeah, that like pairing, because I'll sometimes see pairings between poets,
Hmm.
was just, oh my God. Like the Tina Oberman Crosby In the Delivery Room, I Hate Kids was one of the first poems that I got published. And I couldn't believe it. I remember saying to my then girlfriend at the time, I'm like, you're never gonna believe this. They took it, they're not changing anything. Like this, we're actually rolling here. She's like, oh Jesus. So then from there it became like a much easier to get these accepted. But like this, the first one, the In the Delivery Room, yeah, it's just like an anti-natalist woman talking about how much she hates childbirth, but she's doing it anyway. And like so many anti-natalist poems exist, just so many. They vilify childbirth, if anything. They're trying to like traumatize these readers into not having kids. And it seems like a kind of a vaguely malicious practice, if anything, where they can't really maintain a degree of neutrality on this. I almost always see that it's negative in nature. And
It's
so,
like this,
yeah.
it's like a body horror elements to it, right? That they're trying to like, yeah, produce this kind of disgust about childbirth. And like, you can even see that in the first stanza of the poem when you're like, as the blooming of a Freudian night fruit, which I was just like, that just like took my breath away. I was just like, oh my God, this is so funny. An unfurling of a pelvis, a fracking of the limbic, so that what she sees of Joan of Arc fury. So like, yeah, this idea that it's just this trauma. And, you know, I don't doubt, I haven't given birth, but I don't doubt there's, you know, it's hard. But like this idea that it's not worth it and it's just like this gross Cronenbergian thing. I'm obviously not as fluent in this world as you are, but I can totally see that would be a thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it's kind of just really demoralizing in a way that we don't necessarily need. I'm sure there's poetry out there that venerates childbirth in some respects, but it's usually the traditionalists writing that, you know, and they're tying it into like mythology and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, this one, I tried to add in ideas that I commonly saw. So like, this persecution complex. So she feels like she's being treated like a witch at the Salem witch trials because they love to go back to that imagery. They can't help themselves. And, you know, throws in a sort of joke about the doctor being a fat white guy. And like, it's just, I tried to just like, every poem has little jokes from things that I saw as patterns within all these poetry magazines. But the follow-up one, the My Wife's Son one, I could not believe they took this. I really couldn't. Like just the Tyrone stuff. He's in the Hellcat at the drive-thru instead of being at the hospital.
You know this is what I love about it. What's revealing about it is, you know, and this is like not a, it's not a rare kind of comment, but like, you know, people have said this before, but like this idea that these people are so concerned with like stereotyping and like the dangers of that and how evil that is. When these people like just internalize these stereotypes, like they're the most like that, their brains think that way the most. Like it's like, oh, it's a black guy and he's driving a cat at the drive-thru. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's just this like, and this like worshipping of certain groups of people, like, and not like just treating them like people, and like as like kind of you know, in the poetry world, as everyone's like everyone would need improvement. Like when you said you just submitted that first one and they didn't change a thing, it's like, what the fuck? Like like that does a disservice to like those people, you know, like, and it's just like, oh no, they're special, so we need to do the training wheels for them. It's like really contemptuous when you get down to it.
Yeah, they just kind of it's this odd complex where they feel they're kind of above you, but they're granting you some sort of like noblesse oblige kind of thing where they're raising you up because they're so good at choosing these poems and these poets to promote. And I don't know. I don't think that kind of dynamic is really healthy at all, but they do, to your point, jump to weird psychological associations very quickly. And they would argue that it's because like, oh, well, there's been a perpetuation of this historically. So I can't help but think about it. But like, I'm using a word here, offhand or something, and you're choosing now to associate this with Black people and stuff like that, to the point where you've got like an oversensitivity here that's kind of just, it seems like it's driving you a little bit insane. Like maybe just ease off a little bit here. But the Tyrone one here, for your readers here, I might read the final stanza because I haven't read much of these poems here, especially this one. I think the book club from Hell guys liked this, but we didn't read too much of it. This they'll make of this what they will, but this is stanza 5 of the poem here. So Tyrone is gonna drive the Hellcat over from the barber shop, but the
haircut he paid for.
Yeah. And the baby's about to arrive, so we'll see if Tyrone makes it. But it's nurse here, she's coming, an epidural and IV of morpho this or thatazine to ease the discomfort, change into coveralls as starchy as flat white gyprock, birth canal cream and crimson and black. Can't look now. All I can do is hold your hand, hold it the way matter draws to itself in the most biotic moments. Whatever the fuck that means. My love, you've multiplied, shed upon my stone in transience. This is love, in the way that it's a girl, in the way that it's just us now. Tyrone's at the drive-through now, and I love you, our baby, you, right, your baby, he, us. It's so pathetic. Like, some of the imagery, I just chose to have it not make any sense. Like I would just like the comparisons would just be kind of like mostly right, but then you'd be like, what is he actually saying with this?
Yeah, that's the thing as well, that there's no, what this shows up and what you've intended obviously is there's no quality control that like you can skate through if like, you're of a certain kind of identity. But like there are like some things, and you see this so much in not even just in poetry, you see it in like modern like novels and stuff that get published, like these weird, like there's nothing wrong with a unique metaphor, but like the metaphor has to make sense. Like it's there's no kind of congruence with what it's trying to like represent and like transform. And I remember this, I don't know if you recall this, Jasper, but like I don't know what you think of Ocean Vuong, but
my mortal enemy.
Same, because like I really hate, you might hate this as well, but I really hate when like people who exclusively write poetry get like deals to write a novel, and then it's just like, stitched together prosified poetry rather than just actually writing a fucking novel. But but and that happened to him. He had this like tirade a couple of years ago on Instagram of all places, trying to basically, because someone corrected him about something when he was talking about similes and metaphors. And like I can't remember the exact details, but he got it wrong. Basically, he was basically conflating a simile with a metaphor, and like he did the multiple like Instagram stories about how no, actually, I'm right. And I'm like, lots of people were just too timid in that same way that like the poetry editors are to correct him because he was wrong. He was talking about a simile, not a metaphor. And like they don't even have these kind of concepts straight in their head. So it's like you need, and I would argue that it's possibly because of this lack of quality control. Like they're not shown that, oh, that actually doesn't quite work with what you're trying to do here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see quite a bit of that. And, you know, these sort of famous writers and stuff like that, like Ocean Vuong and Tao Lin and all that sort of stuff, they're still wrong about pretty, not basic things, but they're still fallible, completely. I mean, I work with a lot of these writers and stuff, and I'll see their drafts. I'll be like, yeah, you've used the wrong form of effect here. Like we're not, you know, perfect here, and that's where the editors sort of step in and stuff. It's just you learn the most from editors who really ream you out. Like you genuinely do. If they sort of sit you down and go, hey, you know, your dialogue from this scene, because I've had to go through this, like your dialogue from this scene is just way too lengthy. Like it's just there's so much going on here. We gotta trim it like by 50%, and then you go, oh fuck, like but then the next time you sit down to write a scene, you go, yeah, you know what, he was right. That I'm gonna be much cleaner with it this time, just right from the get-go. And your work from there just progresses toward further polish and all that. So guys like Ocean Vuong, yeah, they might get these giant pushes and they might get these deals and stuff, but they're still making mistakes. And it's kind of reassuring to the kind of writer who's on the sort of upswing. You know, they're trying to make it here, because you don't have to be this kind of, you know, infallible literary figure. You can still make spelling mistakes. You can do all this sort of shit. Like, I say this fairly often to the writers that I'll work with and the ones that I've met at meetings and things of that sort. It's really the difference a lot of the time between, you know, a live album and a totally polished studio produced one. What you do in your drafts and all that, that's the live album. You can, if you want, put that out on like Substack and all that sort of stuff. But people don't often realize that there is that distinction. When you get a book deal and you've got all these editors working with you and everything like that, but you are showing the world the very best version of that work that really could exist. And so people who go into the bookstore and they pick up Ocean Vuong's quasi novel and they go like, man, I'll never be this good. It's like, he isn't that good either. Like this, there's like 6 other people helping him out. So, yeah, there isn't actually that much of a gap between the people at the top and the people in the middle or at the bottom. But, yeah, some people don't realize that that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, I realized that about like 15 years ago when I can't remember who I was reading, but I was like, this was published. And also I understood the infrastructure, editorial infrastructure there too. So this is the best it could possibly be. So I was reading something, I was like, oh my God. Like, I was like, so like I had, after that, I didn't really have any kind of, anxiety about whether my own stuff was publishable, you know, like, so this, I would be very interested to see some of these people's first drafts, you know, because, and it's fine to make mistakes, but like, that's this thing that we're talking about, that like certain things, there's a level of quality control, I guess, in those big 5 publishers and sort of mid-level as well, that possibly isn't there with the journals, or maybe it is there, but only for white men. So like white men get like the really kind of incisive editorial treatment, whereas everyone else just, oh yeah, come on over, like we'll just publish it as is. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that were the case, because that would just make us better writers. Like,
but they're not even getting published, right? So
that's the problem, right? You're not getting the deal, so you're not getting that treatment, unfortunately. Like, and to the point of, a lack of editorial oversight and stuff. Like even that poem that I just read, the My Wife's Son one. I mean, the gender of the baby at the end is a girl, and like I intentionally when I sent it out fucked up the gender of the baby so it would go from being a guy to a girl. And like I would leave spelling mistakes in and stuff like that and formatting mistakes. They just didn't catch any of it. So I'm like, okay, I'll send this to you again and I'll fix it. But for this version, I left some of the gender changing stuff, mostly because I wanted to have the My Wife's Son meme as the title. But like, I've noticed that a lot of these journals, the people in charge, especially like indie ones and stuff, like they're not actually as trained as they should be. Like they're sending me emails with all sorts of grammatical mistakes. I'm like, oh, you shouldn't be editing my work. Like you might actually make it worse. Like, but the top editors and stuff, the ones at these publishing houses are legitimately excellent. Like I've worked with a few and they really do help your stuff. So if that kind of oversight is going to the authors who, you know, maybe aren't the greatest, you know, they end up in a weird spot where do they ream you out like they would me, or are they just kind of nice to you and they baby you and kind of make the changes for you? I feel like some of that's taking place, unfortunately. So it's kind of depriving these writers of the chance to really get grilled and get better on their own. But I can't speak to that fully, but it's a weird, distressing kind of predicament. I still believe in a lot of the top editors. I've seen how they work and I see what kind of influence they have on these books. But wow, to get into their actual programs and stuff is a ball ache and a half, I will tell you. So it's a shame.
Yeah, I've seen this. How much do you think this is influenced by kind of the change in like things like the workshop culture and shit like that? So I remember, so I've taught a bit of writing and I've done workshops and stuff like that. I think it's part of the workshopping format being like, you know, you critique each other's work. But one thing that I did notice actually was that, you know, if someone in a class was of a marginalized identity, like they were always really much more softer on them. So I noticed that even at the level of like, you know, writers just starting out and like, you know, trying to critique each other's work. And that was a very interesting thing. And I don't know if that's like part of it as well, that all of these people come up through these and these kind of social norms are just, you know, reiterated again and again. And that's part of and those people become editors and this is a knock-on effect, you know, like I wonder if it's got something to do with that.
I think it does, where they've kind of internalized this need to baby people from particular demographics. And I've seen it firsthand in the groups that I've run and the groups that I've been a part of, you know, university classes even back in the day. And I mean, it is doing them a disservice.
Very much
but
so.
It's really just like, it's a strange social phenomenon that just comes from a broader kind of brainwashing, if you want to use that term. So it's doing neither party much good, and it's starting to weaken, as I try to make the case, poetry in the broader sort of literary world. I'd just like these editors to kind of grow a pair, so to speak, and be a little bit more, not confrontational, but direct. You know, be more thorough, be more direct, treat them as people, and, you know, don't foist your weird mental complexes onto them. They don't need that and they don't deserve that. So, yeah, we'll see if anyone actually, I mean, the editors I've fooled here and all that and have talked to, they want to take no blame for any of this. They want to act as if it never happened. So I don't know if this change is going to happen anytime soon, but I've done my part to facilitate this.
you're the problem in their eyes, not their
Oh yeah. Oh
really
yeah.
like lax editorial standards. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I want to read one of Adele's poems.
Sure.
So this one, is this the one that won the prize, or like a suburban boy?
Oh, Suburban Boy. No, that one showed up in Corporeal.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I didn't win any prizes with these poems, mainly because I didn't submit to any contests. I ended up being nominated as this
Nominated,
magazine's
that's what I meant. Yeah.
favorite of the year for a big annual contest. And I don't know if I've placed yet, but again, they might have just silently taken me out of the running. So maybe in 2 months, if I win this, like, then it's really gonna stick in people's craws. But yeah, go for it.
I love, and
Suburban
I
Boy.
love, her name is Adele. I don't know how you would pronounce this, or even if this even is a real like Igbo word or something like that. Nwankwo, which I like, that should have been the first clue, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's called Suburban Boy, and between sub and urban is an underscore, and I like to give the visual to people, and boy is spelled BOI. And I don't know if I can do this like weird patois, but like we'll give it a go. It's like Saul, ass, money, Mercedes, steel guard, trigger, Tate, come, text, nudes, Evian, bottle, cock, balls, cock, balls, G-strings, stare, drink, drunk, driving, bros, lads, guys, nails, hammer, axes, wires, weed, LMAO, cell, incel, jerk, hand, love, fag, pussy, beef jerky, Don's, Wendy's, bell curve, left, right, politics, snakes, flags, fracking, fucking, philosophy, war, crypto, Confucius, Cicero, legionnaires, simulation, 100%, rap, snaps, whips, I love it so much.
It's like the definition of a word salad.
Yeah,
poem.
exactly.
I like that bell curve is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her name is like all lowercase. There's like a lot of the names I noticed are just like all lowercase. Like, do you actually get submitted to the journals and like they leave the name, like even proper nouns, just all lowercase?
A lot of writers now choose to go all lowercase when they
The
submit.
bell hooks thing.
Yeah, and I've actually seen the inverse now where they're going all caps because, you can't do one thing for too long in this industry.
Somehow that's even more insane to me. Like it's it's functionally the same sort of thing, but like all caps is crazy. Like that is a crazier thing to do.
I wanted to do the like the retarded SpongeBob font where it's one lowercase, one capital, one lowercase, one capital. And that's the only thing that I didn't do with the names, unfortunately. If I could go back, I would do that as well. But yeah, they're trying out everything now, spaces between every letter. Like it's this quest for individuality when in fact what they're writing about is not individualistic in the slightest. But they'll play those games.
It is interesting how like, yeah, there's this real in this cultural formation, there's this real fetishization of individuality, but none of these people seem to be individuals. Like they're like NPCs who think they're not NPCs, like
Right.
who think they're more special than they actually are, or all this sort of, stuff. But like is it because they're not like well-formed individuals that they kind of, we're psychoanalyzing a type here, which is always, never going to be completely accurate. But like, it feels like they kind of treasure and fetishize individuality, possibly because they don't actually have it.
Yeah, I've certainly noticed that in my dealings with them anyway, where they've really created a sort of like militant form of individualism. They've bought into this where everything is
while being communists, by the way. That's
yeah, I know, which is trust me, I used to hang out with those types in university. They'd bring me along to these sort of like philosophy meetup things, and I would be the only one who would like antagonize them. So it would just cause like just these like ridiculous situations every time they brought me out, because we'd be and this is a bit of a side thing, we'd be on like campus in an apartment someone's father had bought them, and they'd be serving me like charcuterie boards and like offering me champagne, and it'd be like literal champagne in this case. And they'd be like, oh, so, have you read the Marcuse volume I loaned you? I'd be like, yeah, I made it like 10 pages into the One-Dimensional Man. I fucking hated it. Like,
yeah.
Like,
and they're just like, hold that thought. I need to go sharpen the champagne sword.
Yeah, I'd be like, you guys, you haven't donated your money yet. Like, I'm looking around, like, I'm far poorer than you are. I'm basically homeless. Like, I haven't received my reparations yet, but also, like, you could donate a lot of this money to like the BCSPCA or whatever you want. Like, I'll help you do it. And then just conversation would stop, or they'd start getting me onto some sort of like social issue thing that I would just sort of like take the opposite stance on for fun against them. And it would just cause these fucking fiascos every time. But that type of person is the contemporary poet, basically, in a nutshell, where, if they're not writing editorial style poetry, they're just sort of, I don't know, they're reifying this kind of same think type rhetoric, but then they all think that they're on the fringe doing this. Yes. And I just stop and tell them, I'm like, no, you guys are actually all doing it. You are the majority in this industry now. So, I don't expect them to give up on their ideals, because if you're convinced that you're the sort of minority here and, you've been working for years to make this happen, I don't expect a 180. Like, you're not going to finally reach the finish line and go, okay, I'm going to become like an eco-fascist now or something like that. Like, so I get it, but I don't know. There's such a bundle of contradictions and like neuroses that I find it very difficult to try to reason with them on any of this, even outside of poetry, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, you can't you can't reason with them. This is like, friend of the pod, Jack Mason, always says, drinks with friends is like this kind of social cancer that you just have to cut out of your life, because it's like you're always going to run into this, and you can't. Eventually you will run into this and you can't reason with them, like, because it's the old cliche, they didn't reason themselves into that position, so you can't reason them out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's best to avoid those situations. I think
they're like militant normies. Like, they'll change views every few years, but it's always just to side with the status quo, yet they think they're like radical. And they're like, and they're super uninformed, and they'll always like start the conversation, and then like you're like the crazy one or the one being difficult because you just like don't have the same retarded news views as those guys.
Yeah, you're not. They're all addled by like current thingism and just sort of like, but at the same time, like you said, claiming to be these like unique individuals with a fresh take on the world. It's just like, no, you're just imbibing like I truly believe in the Quentin Tarantino response to that question about like, what was it, like Margot Robbie not speaking in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? He was just, I just reject the hypothesis. That's what you've got to do. That's what you've got to do. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a trap to get drawn into their like dialogue or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. And some of them that I bet are actually quite skilled at it anyway. They've done all the readings, they've been to all the lectures and stuff. So they're some of them are quite quick-witted, and they'll try to sort of trap you in all these different things. But ultimately, what I used to do, and I got a little tired of it because it always seemed like there was this kind of contentiousness about even just my presence at certain points in poetry groups and, philosophy groups and stuff. Cause I wouldn't it was sheerly out of just not playing along, like just just wanting to try to take things as far as they could go to see what the sources of these ideas were and these types of things. And it always became a little politically inconvenient and otherwise, and they hated that. But I would sit them down individually, like if we were at a coffee shop or whatever it was, and they would have told me all their sort of ideas about this and that and stuff. And I would just ask them, I'd be like, are you happy? You know, would you say you're generally a happy person? And then they would inevitably go something like, oh yeah, I think so, but, and then they would just sort of add this caveat. And I'd be like, if you can't tell me with conviction that you're happy, I think you might be misleading yourself a little bit, because you're very informed. You're a pretty intelligent person. You're not dying of any illness. You have friends and family and stuff. So there seems to be some sort of, I don't know, fundamental disconnect in the way you're living your life and the things you're thinking. Not that happiness is this great sort of, aesthetic or philosophical end in itself, but it's usually a fairly good indicator that you're living in accordance with your will. And they were all fucking miserable. They were always on fluoxetine prescriptions, and they were seeing quite literally $250 an hour therapists and stuff. And I didn't want to see that for them. I don't want to see you paying that much to some professional who doesn't really care that much about you. And, I don't want to see you taking all these drugs and stuff because you can't stand who you are. And it just got really sad. And none of them really wanted to really reflect on this. There's so much pushback from these types of individuals. And so I just had to kind of throw my hands up and go, I'm not going to stop being who I am, but this can't work. I can't be around people like this all the time. It was really disheartening. And so many of them now are not doing well, and they should be. They really should be. But I see the same thing in poetry, and it's baffling.
Yeah, it is strange. And also it's strange but there's this weird thing, right, as well, that like you said, they're all on antidepressants or whatever, going to therapy. They're all really rich. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. But then they've got all these personal problems, but then like have the audacity to like want to speak authoritatively on, well, anything really. Like I don't know about you guys, but like I will listen to someone and like really internalize what they have to say about like, big things like, I don't know, whatever, poetry, geopolitics or whatever, if they seem like a person who's got their shit together. But if they're like a complete mess, why would I listen to that? And like, but these people act like they should be listened to,
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to the idea of embodying your philosophy first. If you're your own proof of method. So, if you can, right? Like if you can keep yourself together and be responsible and all of this, I'm probably going to be just a little bit more inclined to hear what you have to say about the genocide in this part of the world or whatever the fuck, or, what we should do with our money over here. So, it's very, very rare in this industry, I've found, to meet people who kind of get it and have, I guess, integrated parts of themselves to the point where they're comfortable with who they are, and they're not sort of just entrenched in this or that issue, or they're not under some sort of spell. It's very, very rare to meet people who've kind of freed themselves.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about like Dirt Hog Savage respectfully again. I really love Cherry Blossoms Bussing. That's like one of my favorites in this collection.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like, would you like to read it or read some of it?
Sure.
In character, please.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love it.
Yeah, Dirt Hog here. Let's see.
The first line kills me. So many of these have like banger first lines too. Like even though like they're ostensibly bad poems, like the first lines are always so good. Like they just sum it up, you know?
Yeah, and there's a sort of principle in poetry writing where it's sort of like writing a tight paragraph. You've got to have a great sort of opening line. That's your kind of thesis almost. You might take them on different thematic tangents in the middle, but it should kind of coalesce at the end in some sort of take-home line. So I always try to start off strong and then end on some sort of good note. But this one's from our friend Dirt Hog Sauvage, respectfully, co-editor of the fictitious Echolalia review. Cherry Blossoms Bussin'. I don't know if I can do it in character. I don't even know what he would sound like, but
yeah.
Respectfully, Mama Nature, your cherry blossoms be bussin' for real. They got me thinking like of some confession between an Asian dude, a samurai or some shit, and it's like shoddy. He's all stanced up under the tree, taking in the cool breeze, the smoldering orange horizon, and shoddy rolls up looking like a whole snack, cherry blossoms circling overhead. And shit dude goes, glad you came through. And she says, Cap, you never loved me, Goku. I don't really get Asian names. Appreciate them, though. Meanwhile, this samurai Ronin drip is simply ice cold emoji. And with the setting sun, the first bites of night chill begin to set in. And she goes, you're going to the Battle of Fukushima tomorrow, ain't you, dude? Says, yes, sir. Chick goes, you'll probably die there. This is dangerous, dude. Goes, extreme Cap. She goes, huh? And then dude straight up catches a fallen cherry petal between his fingers, looking cool and shit, feeling the riz welling up within. And he's like, I can only die once I've been in them draws. You feel me? And for real, the riz works, and they smash right there into the tree. And the stars come out and make an unreal vibe or whatever. Ohio Gat Kaisenat. Anyway, Mama Nate, she be doing wild shit in these blossoms every spring. Big time MC energy from you. You got me imagining shit. Keep it up respectfully. I haven't read this one in so long.
It's so good. It's so good. It's gold. It's very agitator coded, actually. You should go and agitator, Jasper. Have you heard of that show?
I think I have in passing. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, because they're basically wiggers and like not like really bad wiggers, but like they influenced by that culture and
more
really,
like nu metal kind of some Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
But really great really great writers, really great guys. They've been on our show a bunch. They'll probably, but Kelby especially would love that poem that you just read.
Oh, Kelby Losak?
Yeah.
He actually endorsed the book. I sent it to him a while back, and he was down with it. So I used him for an endorsement for the landing page.
There you go. Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it so much. Like, and it's also this thing where that again, like it's so much in the character of the persona as well. Like he's talking this way to like be with it, and it's like at this like at this level where you can appreciate it. You can appreciate it as like kind of nonsense, like vaguely ebonic stuff, but like then it's just this guy trying to like embody that. And also, is the name? Where'd you get the name from? Is it from Samuel Delaney's Hog? Is that where you got part of it from?
No, actually, but I had heard of that. It was more. I was, doing research on these magazines, and I'd look up the editorial teams, and I would see that some of them were trying to kind of create obvious pseudonyms, just so like joke pseudonyms. And there was like Finn Garchomp Jr. from, which magazine was it? Bleach. And I'm like, what the fuck are these fake names? Like these are just like farcical, like obviously farcical.
And so I'm just like, all right, I love like hog related things. And, sauvage is one of these types of words people will use to sound like hard, but like not quite. And so I don't know, it just sort of like came about. I'm like, dirt hog. All right, that's good. And like, I got to add some stupid shit on the end. So just the respectfully at the end, I thought was the perfect touch. But
do you think they go through the same process when they're like deciding what their name is? They're like, oh, all right, I got to add some stupid shit on the end now. Like,
yeah, it seems like it. I mean, that's been my observation, but yeah, like when I was creating all of these names, because I had to create so many for this, like there were main personas I sent things out under, but then there were ones that were just like side characters within the fictitious journal. So like I would give them some of the poems published under Adele and stuff, just because no journal is just like 6 poets. It's always like 25. So like all the Dasani Chianti types and all this. Yeah, like every time I tried to create a main persona, I'm like, what kind of joke do we center this around? Because it has to relate to the archetype. So like Eleanor Navia May Payne, big cock girl dissident, is like this sort of angry Asian diaspora type character.
Many
so
such
like she's
cases. I'm familiar. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like my favorite literary meme is the judge like aggressively hitting his gavel, and it's like sentenced to reading 1,000 pages of like an Asian diaspora author.
Can I read the bio? Cause you've got the bios at the end. And
sure, yeah.
These are poetry too, really. So, so for the one for Eleanor, Eleanor Navia May Payne, pronouns T/Rex, is a madcap genderfuck quadriracial dinosaur sent to this earth to gobble down fascists. Just kidding, mostly. T would like you to buy Rex chapbook. It's in Chinese characters. Maternity spine press 22x. And we'll be breathing hot scaly breasts down your neck until you do. Dinosaur emoji. So that's the character. Yeah. So you were talking about her.
Yeah, and this was the actual bio I sent out as her, except for the like maternity spine stuff. I added that on just because otherwise they would have looked this book. I'm going, what the fuck? Like this doesn't exist. But yeah, the quadriracial dinosaur stuff, like that's it made it into print. So they'll pretty much take anything in that regard. But then like Dirt Hog, some of the fun of his persona, because his bio is right above hers. I didn't use this bio when sending stuff out under him, just because I sent out just a couple things as him, like right near the end, because I was getting tired of doing all these emails. Like it was taking so long. So I'm like, fuck it. I'll just take the last couple of poems and send them out as like satire pieces. Some of them did end up, I did get like a publication requests for them months down the line, and they wanted them as serious pieces. So like that was like one small missed opportunity, but his one shows that he's trying to use a lot of these like Ebonics terms and Zoomer terms, but he's like not quite certain of himself at times. Like in the fake interview, he's questioning if he's using the term correctly and stuff. But it's bless up, Dirt Hog Sauvage respectfully, blood/bled, or emoji/emoji self is on God, one of the executive editors at Echolalia Review. Blood's currently going through with an identity change, and and is learning to adapt Blood's lifestyle from that of an old head late 30s millennial to that of an early 20s Zoomer. Don't sweat. DHSR's crazy work was scrutinized just as heavily as the other work here during the editorial process. Promise, bruz.
I like to use his like pronoun actually in the like text too, like just to how ridiculous that is to actually use their stated pronouns.
Yeah. Like this whole like bled thing and all this sort of shit. It's just so ridiculous. But
yeah.
I would see things like that. This is all parodying what exists in the industry.
I noticed you had a Mean Jin poet Brisbane. That's actually like this where I am right now in Brisbane. But like you'll see that on gig flyers where they'll be like Brisbane/Mean Gin, which no one in real life ever like refers to it as that.
Yeah, I've noticed that with like a lot of Australian poets and stuff. It's always Mean Gin now. They like there's some sort of I don't know, signaling with that, and I get the idea behind it, but yeah, it's kind of like, are people actually doing this in day-to-day life? Probably not.
Don't they do that in Canada as well? Like instead of Toronto, they say whatever the original indigenous word for it is. Like they do shit like that as well in that world.
Sometimes, yeah. It's like I do hear it, but it's also really uncommon, and it's clearly like during times where you're talking about like indigenous issues usually. So the problem up here is that there are so many different groups. Like I've allegedly taught which was hilarious, indigenous lit. They got me to teach indigenous literature. And that's not to say I don't like it, but I'm like, am I qualified to do this? Like, why would you get me to teach indigenous lit? But okay. So I had to do quite a bit of research into indigenous history and all this kind of stuff. And there are just so many groups and so many languages up here that it's almost impossible to really consolidate things. Like you basically just have to use the language specific to the region when doing these commercials and stuff. And there's no consistency in the characters or any of this. So it's very difficult for the public to kind of come to grips with this. They just don't really know what's going on linguistically. But I also parodied that in the Claire Brooke Hawksmouth persona, where every word she uses is from a different indigenous language.
Are they actual real indigenous languages, or did you make them up?
Oh, they're real, yeah. So, like her name, for example, I think I used Algonquin, which has no connection to her stated like place of birth. Coast Salish, I used like Iroquois, like just everything. But every word, if you translate them in her name, it equates to like, I'm a fraud or not a real person and things like this.
That's funny, that interview with her, I think it was her, right, where they're like, oh, we absolutely hate to do this, but some people are saying that you're not actually like a full Indian or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I see that a ton up here in particular with like indigenous authors, or like let's say ostensibly indigenous authors.
Is it like Australia when they're all actually just white?
Yeah. Does that happen down there a lot?
Yes.
Oh fuck.
They're even like the white posters, they'll have like NAIDOC week posters in the work, and then they'll like be like calling all mob and all this stuff, and then all the photos of people that like examples of Aboriginal employees are like whiter than me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite performative and it's quite transparent. We do the same thing. Like it's a playbook, you know, that's unfortunately a global phenomenon now. But yeah, I cite our CBC Media, which is, you know, a media organization, let's say here.
The equivalent of our ABC, and I imagine that's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I've had problems with the CBC, certainly, and the literary contests they put on are a fucking travesty. But, and actually, another anecdote, someone I went to university with and who ran in these same circles as the philosophy people, she won a CBC contest for a Baba poem. And it was,
I like that. That's a genre too. I love that.
Yeah, it's the fucking Baba genre. She won like $6,000 and like got all these opportunities and shit for a fucking Baba poem that was just mediocre. It was just thoroughly mediocre. And we knew this other poet who was kind of getting book deals for the same shit. I'd go in and I'd see her books in the stores. I'd be like, man, I know this person. And I know how she like writes and stuff. It's just not good. Like what is happening here? But yeah, so the Baba genre, part of that experience inspired the Baba one eventually. But with the indigenous stuff, the CBC put on this program, the Pretendians, and I think it largely holds true where a lot of these artists are trying to attach themselves to indigeneity or whatever the term is, in the hopes of kind of like bolstering up their careers. And I get it. I mean, I'm advocating, as I say, for pen names. Like, I want people to use pen names to expedite their careers because you're kind of getting blackballed, especially if you're in our demo. So why wouldn't you do this? But the indigenous literature up in Canada is dominated by like half-white indigenous writers, Thomas King and all these guys, where they kind of just brush that off and they go like, yeah, might as well act like I'm fully indigenous and stuff like that. And I've taught so many of these different authors, and even the host himself looks more white than he is indigenous. And I've read his work and I've had to teach part of his stuff. I'm like, God damn, like it really is that way up here, isn't it? Like they're like half or more than half white, and they're making these careers off of part of themselves. So you enter into a realm of dishonesty that is different from what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm intentionally being dishonest to prove a point, but they're being dishonest out of some other kind of inclination that I think is just kind of like passively malicious in the end. Like they don't realize what they're doing, or they do, but they're hiding it.
Yeah, and there's a fundamental unfairness to it because, like, they're the idea, and they probably don't see it like that as well because they can construct it through the ideology as like, oh, and no, it's a leveling of a playing field, even though they're like solidly middle class and are just sort of, have had all of the opportunities that anyone else of their class has had, but they get to like, do a kind of like post hoc justification of it by claiming this kind of like heritage,
which they probably don't like actually identify with, or like probably didn't even know they were like Indian until they did like the 23andMe, and it's like, oh, you're 164th. Okay.
Yeah. I know so many. I have so many examples of this. This is obviously, I don't know why, but this is obviously more common in places like Australia and Canada, less common in the US, although it's becoming a little bit more common. But like, I think because the US has such like a very brutal like conquest narrative of the continent, so it's just like, whereas ours, I'm not too familiar with Canada's history in terms of colonization, but in Australia we just have this weird. The British took over essentially and dispossessed the indigenous people. But then like the Aboriginal activists are always saying things like sovereignty was never ceded. Like there wasn't ever like some kind of document that said, but like in practice it was like the British took over, like they conquered the continent. And that's like a little technicality that they have. So maybe that's got something to do with like why this stuff is so common in our countries. But so like there's this like weird thing where people, mostly in the university and art sectors, can like claim this identity as almost like to push them further in getting like promotion or something like that, when they're just a pretty kind of mediocre. I'm thinking of a very specific example of someone that I worked with at university who is like one of these people who found out like kind of late in life that they're Aboriginal, but they're really like white as the driven snow, blue eyes. And they're also non-binary too. So, and I was like saying they, not because I adhere to that, but because I'm trying to anonymize it a little bit. So I don't get like sued, but she what is like kind of started like leaning into all of this. And one of the things that's really funny, like your mileage may vary on like, how much you think people growing up experienced racism in this country. But she would say things like she would conflate her specific experience with like someone else, like a black woman in the street who like got hassled or whatever, or got told to move on. And I'm like, you don't have that. Like, you grew up white, so you can't, like, even from their logic, you can't claim that sort of stuff. And she always did, and it was always really awkward. Like, so
Yeah.
this claiming of like, it's kind of stealing Aboriginal valor or something like that, you know, this claiming of that, like this, life experience that they don't have just to basically get ahead in their career. It's very like, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me. Like, it's kind of disgusting, but anyway.
No, it's true. And I've seen a lot of that personally. I've gone to readings and stuff with artists of that variety and sort of persuasion. I don't want to necessarily, you know, target anyone with this, and I might be doxing myself slightly by you know, admitting that I was there. But you know, I've gone to live poetry readings, which to many might sound like a special form of torture, and it is. But I went to, and I heard Tawahum Beige read some of his stuff. And he, in the Vancouver scene, is fairly popular. He's made it into a lot of like best Canadian poetry anthologies and stuff. So I'm like, okay, let's see what he's got. And he's decently talented. I haven't seen anything to suggest that he isn't deserving of some degree of attention as a creative. But here's another one of these stories of someone who's very clearly half white, but every single thing he writes about is how much he hates that side of himself and how he basically is just longing to be 100% indigenous. And so many of them get caught in this trap, and it just ends up kind of creating this vortex in indigenous literature and stuff, like where people like me can come along and notice the patterns in a couple of days and start like making fun of it, just because you're doing yourselves a disservice by not exploring more of what you have to offer. There's so much material that you guys could be writing on. And I don't dislike indigenous literature at all. Some of it is a little bit gimmicky, you know, Jordan Abel's Injun and stuff like that. You know, it gets a bit tiresome once you get halfway through the collection. But I to all my detractors and stuff, I usually say the same thing. Like, I'm not trying to limit them from writing anything, but I would advise them to explore a broader range of topics within what they have to offer the world, because then you're kind of venerating your culture, but you're bringing more people in with genuine interest, and you're not tricking them or guilting them or anything like that. And they might find that there's a lot to really enjoy there. But my God, if you try to tell them that, they really don't like that.
They kind of know it as well, because like you do see a lot of the more thoughtful ones will write about this and write about how like they feel they don't have you know, the license to write about anything else for various reasons, usually ideological, that like I must write about indigeneity, I must do it in this way, blah 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 blah. But but they still struggle with that, like, and agonize over it. But then they still go and write that shit anyway. It's just like, go and just write like what you want to write, you know, like don't be beholden to kind of this political orthodoxy. Like, are you a writer or are you like a fucking polemicist, you know? Like, pick one.
Yeah, and I equate a lot of these contemporary writers to, and I think I was talking on Leafbox about this, to soldiers in a sense, where they're kind of deployed with a certain ideology. The more malicious ones like Vanessa Place and stuff like that, and I despise her still, but like you end up creating these kinds of ideological soldiers, and they just go out and they write more of these books and they do more of these interviews, and it's just, it's so tedious and it's so spiritually oppressive in the end. for them and us. Like we've hit a certain saturation point in like indigenous literature and stuff of certain ideas where adding on actually now causes kind of a diffusion effect where you're losing the effectiveness of this. Where if you were to go in to a bookstore and there were 3 novels, let's say 3 really great novels on indigenous experiences in Canada on sale, like on display, that might be great because then everyone can sort of direct their attention toward these. But now if you have 4,000 options from just this year alone, how the fuck are you supposed to how are you supposed to talk to anyone about this stuff? Because they haven't read it. And like, you're just kind of like paraphrasing ideas. And then this other one that's kind of like it and is sort of similar, maybe says the same things, but you're not really sure. Yeah. This diffusion effect has really hurt literature. Especially when there's, this singularity effect going on.
Yeah. So you've spoken about how you're kind of. I think that this was sort of partially inspired by the Ern Malley affair, which I was really surprised to hear you kind of mention that because I didn't know that barely anyone in Australia knows about that.
I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, like
I'm a Philistine when it comes to poetry, but yeah,
but like it was such a big deal here in like the 40s or whenever it happened, and so it was basically it's a similar kind of thing where like these 2 sort of more conservative leaning poets were like pranking this literary journal called Angry Penguins, and so they submitted, and the literary journal was really into modernism, like it was like high modernism. They were loving it, they were all over it, and so they basically made these like fake poems that got accepted for publication. And this is like, I feel like I do not want to in any way suggest, Jasper, that like this project is not an achievement, but all I'm going to say about the Ern Malley thing is that like that was back when there were like more standards. So like getting that through was like such a sort of that was a real big achievement because it's like but again, it's very similar to what you're doing here. With Echolalia Review is that you're not pitching the poem as a poem. You're pitching it like to the values of the editor that like, as long as you flatter their kind of like, ideological commitments, that's what kind of gets it through. So in some ways I kind of am like, in some ways like standards have really dropped. So it's much easier to do this stuff, I think. But then in other ways, it's like it's a trend that seems to have been there from the very beginning of these like literary journals. That as long as you kind of flatter and like make platitudes in your work, it really lubes up the poem and gets it through. You know?
And the Ern Malley thing, I had started on this actually before I realized that they had succeeded with this. I had just sort of gotten the idea after, reading so many of these journals and just seeing the same names and faces and these types of identities. I'm like, what would happen if I tried to be one of them? And then as I was doing research, once I had started writing these poems, I'm like, oh, fuck, people have also done this. And they actually took down this magazine. Like Angry Penguins ended up going out of print because the editor got taken to court over obscenity charges because these poems were very subtle, but they were suggesting at times quite adult themes. So, yeah, I mean, that's like a complete victory, I guess, for the Ern Malley boys, right? I haven't taken any journals out of print necessarily. I've just been written about in articles where they call me a meanie, but
have you got any articles? Because one of the things that happened with the Ern Malley, it was probably like a year later or something, after it all went down. One of the editors was like, well, actually they were technically like really good poems, like was sort of coping really hard.
Yeah.
But have you got any of those yet? Like where the editor is possibly trying to justify their inclusion on a like a technical level that like even though it was intended this way, it can be read. Have you got any of those yet?
Yeah, sort of. Now, like, and this is a bit of an exclusive for you guys because I
Oh,
feel
amazing.
like at this point, it's been long enough that it doesn't matter. I actually created another persona and I leaked this information to a bunch of these editors to get the ball rolling, right? And
That's
so I
perfect. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, so like I played a character, a sort of like another vaguely indigenous kind of writer from Vancouver who had met me at a writers group. And I had brought in my Echolalia and I was bragging about it. And so like I, I described myself just for fun as like a realtor type who was dressed really well and had like great hair and like all this sort of other shit. Like basically just calling myself handsome, but I'm also evil.
Patrick Bateman. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I wrote to these editors. I'm like, as a member of the poetry community, I just can't stand by and, watch this stuff happen. I thought I should reach out and I did some research and he had a sample on his website and, I found his Substack and stuff. So maybe you want to read these things, but, he's indicated your journal in his ruse. So I just wanted to let you know. And that's what kickstarted this because the editor from the Bitch and Kitsch who published the Decolonizing a Stray poem, about the cat, who gets decolonized and potentially killed by, what his new owner feeds him. The editor started posting on X and like reaming me out, going like, there's a white male, poet who's pretending to be, BIPOC and like, we can't stand for this kind of shit. And that's when everyone started picking up on it. Like, I think I'm probably still the pinned tweet. Like she sent me, emails to the Adele, thing after this going like, oh, I can't believe this. Like, you have to give me the $10 back that I paid you, the honorarium. Like, this came from my pocket. Like, you no longer satisfy the criteria of this journal or something. I had to write back to her. She posted my responses, a couple of them. The last one, because I kind of cooked her, she didn't, but she was like, give me the $10 back because I feel like, you violated our guidelines and that was money from me. And she had a pay scale where she would only pay the BIPOC submitters. If you submitted as like a white woman, for example, you wouldn't get payment if you were published. So I sent her something back. I'm like, well, my crack team of lawyers is going to take a look at this and see if we want to give you the refund here. But in the meantime, I'll send you my my manuscript. I'll send you the whole thing. And if you want to read just part of it to see what I've done, I'll give you the $10. But I just want you to read this and maybe acknowledge that your editorial practices are a bit fucked up. Like, you've got a 10-page questionnaire for people who submit. Like, this is weird. Like, this is not good. And you're not the only one. So why don't you do that? And evidently she did not take me up on that. So I didn't give her the $10 back. I had already donated it to, like a wildlife fund. But, so Chris Heindel Talbot really got this going, and I can't thank her enough, actually. Like, it really worked out.
So are they that, like, all of these editors are that clueless that none of them have realized it on their own, is what you're saying?
Basically, yeah. None of them figured they had been duped in any capacity until I reached out to them and said, I think you've been duped. And then they went back and they would say, like, in the case of Chris here, to answer your original question, they would say, like, oh, well, I really liked the original poem. It spoke to me about this or that, and I thought it was good. She even probably still has that up on X on either her the BK account or her personal one. But yeah, like, so some of them would say to my Luna persona that they did like the things and they were just extremely discouraged. And you know, they weren't going to post about it because that would bring attention to this, and they don't want to give Jasper a platform. So they've just been quietly deleting all of my content off the internet.
Yeah, that's what I was, when I was like, you know, perusing the internet for the poems that you got through. Yeah, I was met with so many 404 gateways, like gateway error. Yeah, that's a shame. But well, they're all immortalized in this book, I guess. Yeah. One of the great things about it as well, I think, is towards the end, after the bios, you have all the like posters. It's this great like artifact of the industry as well. So it's not just about the poetry. It's also about all of these other things around it, like the competitions and the different presses and shit like that. Yeah, like I really like the GH ABLA FGB FZY2 Henderson Poetry Award. $2,000 first prize, $4 second prize. Like little things like that, I really appreciate it. It's like a nice like way to kind of conclude it. Yeah, and then obviously all of your that's what I wanted to ask as well. The questionnaire that you talked about of this that magazine. Is the questionnaire that you've put in Echolalia review basically copy and pasted? Like, is it the same thing?
Well, I had two, and they're sort of my own doings. One, the submissions page for Echolalia review, the poetry submission form is more like, let's say, the standard that you would be confronted with if you were to submit through Submittable these days. So something about like a race questionnaire, some sort of warning about if you send the wrong file format, they'll like crucify you. You know, selecting if you're male or female and having to explain why you selected male if you did. Just shit like that. And then like throwing these terrible like payment options your way if you want to expedite things. So it's like $59 if you want to get a response within like 7 to 8 months instead of like 4 years or some shit. Like this would be the average one at this point, not really too crazy. But then the other one is the grant one. A little further down. That one, it's that one's a little played up, but it is actually based on an actual grant application form. So I've just added a couple more personal questions, but they would ask you to budget and do all this sort of shit and like and explain your whole thing, but they don't actually give you much space to do it. And so, you know, I just threw like a bunch of nonsensical questions in, like the math questions, you know, if LaQuisha leaves their domicile at 8:43 a.m. and like travels in this direction, and this other person does like just stupid shit. But yeah, the actual questionnaire for the BK was like straight up 10 pages. Like, you know, please say no self-harm. If there is, like, we'll just reject it immediately. Explain your identity. What's your connection to this magazine? What's your it was just so tedious. But a lot of the industry is just that, tedious.
Yeah. And that's what there's this there's a bureaucratic nature to it. It's like it all comes back to like this kind of strange bureaucratization of like arts and culture, right? That like there's these boxes we have to tick, and so many like qualifiers and explanations and explanations to the explanations and all this sort of shit. That is just like yeah, you look at these submission pages and you're like, it's a chore to read them. It's just like, when are we going to get to like just submitting the thing? And you just decide whether you want it or not, sort of thing. But having worked, so have you worked in like the journal, or is it more the publishing side of things?
Well, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But more on the sort of like editorial side at
Okay.
literary magazines.
Yeah. So you're not, you haven't worked, have you worked in the, reading submissions and stuff like that, or is it more after the fact? Yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about the expedited thing. That just seems like a grift to me. Like that it's actually like it's just a way to like extract money out of like desperate like writers who are desperately wanting to be published,
100%. And I've edited for a few different journals, and I've edited for like anthologies, and I've judged contests and that sort of thing. Nothing crazy. Like I wasn't like so high up, because I'm still fairly early on in my career, but like I wasn't so high up that I'm doing like these massive international contests and shit. But I've been co-editor at a few different journals and stuff, and I'm now the EIC at Perube because Noah's stepping down. He's just going to do our design work and stuff. But it's like the expedited stuff, we never offered that. Free submissions should be this sort of standard. If you're on Submittable or some platform that charges you, like I see people do the minimum of $3. That's still a little tedious, but it's I guess forgivable. It's whatever. It's just sort of like operational fees.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
It's always it's never sat right with me. I started publishing stuff like back in the I guess early 2010s, probably a little bit before that actually, and that was just unheard of. And like people would say like mentors and stuff like that is like just steer clear of anyone that charges to read your work, because it's very often a scam, and now it's just normal in the industry. And so that suggests to me, like the lesson I took from that is that the industry is a scam, because it's like it's never sat well with me that's the industry standard practice.
Well, that's true. And I think what I don't know if this made it into the final version, but I had written this at some point. The ideal method for most literary journals would be a donation option. That's it. Free submissions, and I advocate very strongly for free submissions in general in my notes. But if you had a donation option and you felt inclined to like throw $2 their way to help with operational costs, like you can do that. Like just give the option. Most people won't, but that I think is probably the extent, or the sort of let's say the furthest I would go when it comes to fees for submitters, because we're already so fucking broke. Most of the poets I know are so goddamn broke, and like that was me for so long too. So people charging $25 US to read like a full manuscript was just like criminal. And I know how poorly they're read by editorial teams. So like that ain't really worth your money. But
yeah, certainly not getting what you paid for.
I don't know if you guys have. I know you would have submitted a bunch of stuff, but Fresta, if I'll call you that there. Have you submitted stuff as well?
I've like submitted short stories to just like, like Apocalypse Confidential, and like just sort of like,
gotcha.
Yeah, like, and that's sort of more like email, and they're like, oh, that's fun, we'll post it kind of thing. Like, so I haven't really been through the whole, because I'm not really like a writer. I sort of just dabble. Really, I don't like. Yeah, so
Resta had a very popular underground zine called Rango Tango that he used to do.
I wouldn't say very popular.
Yeah, I was going through that actually on your X there.
Oh yeah,
that was cool.
The link probably doesn't work anymore because my website.
It did not. I had to dig around a lot.
Yeah, like if you want, I can just send you the files. But like whatever. It's just like I consider it just more like a stepping stone thing for me, just like something to practice writing with. And now I'm kind of like over it. But yeah, I've not really like been through the whole like spending months getting rejected. Like generally, if I submit a story, it gets rejected once. I'm like, I've kind of lost interest and forget about it.
Yeah, fair.
I sent one of my manuscripts to that. I don't know if Jasper, you heard about the guy who's doing the press for temporarily only males.
I did. Yeah. I saw
that.
I sent something.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I sent my novel to them because I've
the conduit thing or whatever.
Yeah. I've been shopping it around a lot of places in Australia. The Australian publishing industry is like, let's not go there. But but yeah, like it's all. I've gotten really good feedback on it. Like it's like, this is great, all that sort of shit. But then it's just like, I can tell like that it's they don't know what to do with it. And so that's fine, that's fair. But I think they don't know what to do with it because it doesn't sit easily in like their copious amounts of like women's pashmina fiction. I don't know. But like the reading public in Australia does skew very, very much sort of like older women mostly. So it's just really fucking boring. So yeah, I'm looking elsewhere. So that's why I submitted to that guy. And I thought it'd be like funny if I got published by them.
What if he's like, sorry, we're only doing straight males?
Yeah, probably. He probably will be, yeah. Yeah, I have very straight male sensibilities though, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it could have fooled me, so.
So that's a conversation we had. What episode was it on when like, I think it was when JDO was on and he was asking, does Sini sound gay in the Australian accent? And like, cause he's like, he doesn't sound gay to me. And then like Fresta was like, oh yeah, he's gay. He sounds gay.
Well, you're like kind of a masculine gay guy, I think. Like I'm kind of like a wussy, sensitive straight guy, and you're a masculine gay guy.
Yeah, and that's why it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I heard it there. Now that we've talked about it, I definitely heard it there with the it works kind of thing.
It's probably like
the
lip wrist. Yeah. No, that's great. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Fresta? Like,
well, one other poem I was really amused by was the one where it's middle management goose stepping do nothings or something, where it's like clearly a person who's bad at their job just like turning it into this like Auschwitz like trial because they're being called to the office. But like it comes through in the poem that they're not like doing much or coming in late or something like that all the time. Yeah. And they're not even in very much trouble by the sound of it. Like they're just like having a meeting.
Yeah, that one was really fun to do because I had seen so many like Holocaust adjacent poems where it was used so like flippantly, where it's like the equivalent of like, yeah, I didn't catch the bus this morning, like Holocaust. It's like, holy shit, like what? Like, oh
not catching the bus is kind of like missing the Holocaust. That's so it's like you need to like that's another example of quality control where a good editor would say, well, the metaphor there is not like, it's more you kind of have to get on the bus for it to be like an Auschwitz like analogy, you know.
Right, they should catch that.
Catching public transport is way more close to the Holocaust than missing it.
Right, like I gotta go downtown after this, and we have what's called a SkyTrain in Vancouver, and man, this thing is a fucking ride. Like you're getting on with schizos, people doing crack openly in the corner, like Zoomers blasting their JBL speaker shit, like, you know, Fetty Wap's back, so they're playing that openly. It's just it's so bad. I like watch fights constantly and shit. It's so bizarre. But yeah, like I would equate that to some form of Holocaust, having to commute on that every day. But That one was Cape Magazine. They took that. They're defunct now, like so many journals, but it was two people who actually had like good credentials. Like they actually had decent editorial and publishing credentials, I believe. They'd put out their own collections and all that with publishers. So I expected that they might offer something about this idea or whatever, but it's yeah, the person's shit at their job. You know, I tried to make it more extreme, like, you know, they were stealing the money themselves, but I'm like, that might, people might think that I'm going like, you know, too hard on this. So I just made it, you know, they're mismanaging their accounts. But yeah, that one I even sent out under Adele just for fun. I'm like, well, are they going to take this like Holocaust poem from a Nigerian person? Like, let's just see. But they did. So
amazing. Yeah, well, so it's a great project. It's just so fun. The other thing, like, I need to if we haven't conveyed it already, I need to just say it, that they're like, it's a lot of fun to read, like to sort of go through it, and you can tell that you had so much fun too. I'm a big believer in like the conditions in which something is made is always transferred to like the reader. Like, so if you're having fun when you're writing, you can sense that. I have it's almost a spiritual view of that. But yeah, you can tell that you had a lot of fun, and you can tell that it's very, you know, despite what these editors might say about how evil you are, you can actually get the sense that you actually really care about this stuff. So it doesn't feel like, overly negative, even though it is critiquing these practices. So I would really recommend it. And so where can people find it, Jasper?
yeah, so this one's primarily on Amazon at this point. And they were kind of censoring the book for a little while, but I think it's out of that Amazon purgatory. So yeah, if you type in Echolalia review or my name or something, it'll probably show up. And if you want like a PDF version of it or something like that from me, you can just email me. My stuff's on the Per Ube website. So Jasper Ceylon at protonmail.com. You can just reach out to me directly if you like. I'm not trying to gatekeep poetry, and poetry doesn't make money for shit. So like, honestly, I'm just trying to get this sort of out there for the people who have bought it and like reached out to me and all that. It's actually been really cool. Like the people who have said like, man, I was kind of losing faith in the industry and stuff, but this is so like metal. Like, it's crazy that you did this.
It is,
like,
yeah.
I want to encourage those people. So yeah, I mean, if you want to give this a try, or if you just want to reach out to me and get like a sample, or I can even send you the PDF or some shit, like, just give me a shout. But yeah, Amazon for now.
Our listeners tend to buy things, so they'll probably just buy it. So that's good.
Yeah, that would be great.
So, yeah, and with the press that you're doing, is that open for submissions? We have some writers who listen as well. So, like, what are you looking for? What are you doing over there?
Yeah, so it'll be open soon. Because Noah, he's been writing a few new books, and you know, he's looking to take a back seat now. Originally, he was going to sort of put it out and manage everything going forward, but then I just asked if he wanted me to step in after the fact. So we've kind of just begun the transition, but I'm going to be retooling the website a little bit here over the next month, and then I'd like to open up probably the magazine portion soon. Like, we'll consolidate all of the stuff that he put out into like a PDF, and then we'll sort of start with my era of it. But I'd like to open up the press side of things for poetry at first, because that's generally what I'm most confident in editing. So like, yeah, all those poets who kind of feel like there's no niche for them, you know, they've got traditionalist sensibilities, but they're writing in a contemporary style, or they're trying to do something maybe politically incorrect or whatever it is. As long as it's good, as long as there's actual talent behind it and some weight, I'll pretty much entertain anything. So I'm trying to open up a new little niche for, you know, the kind of Substack crowd, the kind of literary outlaw poet types. So hopefully next month we can open up also the press side of things.
And if you're and you encourage people to prank you in the same way that you've hoaxed these journals too, right? So if there is an actual Adele out there, you encourage her to like submit something and pretend to be a white man or something.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, if you want to send me some like, monologue type thing about being a white guy in the city and like hating what you see around you and like hating modern art, but like it's actually just
Rorschach from the Watchmen, yeah.
that kind of shit. Like, yeah, if you want to do that and try to fool me, I'm all for it, because when I was on other editorial teams, I'd miss little references that other people would fill me in on. Like it happens all the time. So yeah, go for it. Try to fool me too. Fuck it. If it ends up being good, like I'll like it. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. And it's a great book, and it is so much fun to read. Like, I never thought I would say this about like poetry, because I'm not a big poetry person, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, you just got that kind of impish, sort of, perspective that I really loved. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the praise and stuff. It was a long time coming. This thing took a shitload of time.
Yeah, that's it. That's the other thing too, the commitment. Like, props to you for that, and like the commitment it took. So to like pose as all these different identities, and like the logistics of all the emails, and I can see that would have taken a lot.
Yeah, even there's different like logos for all the fake little like journals, or like CIA fronted grant or the industry plant and things like I was like, oh man, he actually like must have gone sought out like graphic designers to make all these little logos for him.
Yeah, and some of them I had to do myself. So like the protest signs and all that, I did those. And like Noah did some of the ads, and the artwork I'd commissioned someone to do the fake Instagram poem illustrations, because I needed them in a particular style. So like there were a lot of different people providing art and stuff, but I had to conceptualize it first and then give them the notes and shit. So it ended up being like a multimedia project. I was going to have links to videos that I had filmed, and like it was going to have fake websites I designed and shit. Like it was going to be like really huge, but then I'm like, my God, how much time do I have to really do this stuff?
Yeah, well, Fresta, any final thoughts from you?
I just wanted to read one of the Insta poetry poems I liked. If kissing the homies gently with a tenderness I never showed you is gay, then I guess I'm gay.
That's a great way to sum it all up, isn't it? Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you,
Jasper, and enjoy your trip downtown, I guess. We'll talk again soon. We love talking to you.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me on. And I mean, in terms of your book, actually, I'll send you a couple links, because there might be a few more places that I know of that might be interested in your book, actually. So maybe you've already heard of them, but I'll shoot you an email. But yeah, okay, thanks guys for having me on and letting me talk about the world of poetry here.
Yeah, thanks so much. And enjoy your night. See you later.
Thanks so much.
It's mad homo thugs out there, so don't act like y'all don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm keeping it real. You heard? Illest homo thug out the NYC. And it's 2 ingredients y'all need to be. Catch it. Y'all got to be sexable, flexible, ow, ow. Sexable, flexible, purr, cat, cat. Sexable, flexible, ow, ow. Caution, caution, cat, cat, cat. It's gonna get some beer, beer. It's gonna get some beer. Caution, it's gonna get some beer, beer. Meow, 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 bitch. Illest homo thug out the NYC. Illest homo thug out the NYC. BK New York, what?